Hi, Dr. Marcia here in another of my Coping with COVID and Moving into Winter with Good Self-Care series. And today I want to talk to you about healthy skepticism. And the reason I want to talk to you about this today is because there's so much strange stuff going on online, on the internet. There are so many conspiracy theories going on and so many people kind of spreading disinformation and false information. And then people who are speaking the truth are accused of spreading false news. So it's a really strange time. It's very paradoxical. People who speak the truth are said to be liars, and people who are lying are said to be telling the truth. So healthy skepticism will help you get through all this because it will help you understand how to know whether what you're seeing or reading is actually real. And the way you want to do this is by following the facts. And also by following kind of the motivations behind the words that people are saying. I've always felt like if you listen to what someone is saying and then ask yourself why they might be saying it, what do they have to gain, that will really help you to determine whether or not they're speaking the truth. For example, if what somebody is saying is obviously self-serving, is going to give them more power or control or influence, then you need to take that with a grain of salt. You need to have that healthy skepticism because maybe the only reason they're saying what they're saying is because it's advantageous to them. If somebody is telling the truth, it's not going to benefit them in any particular way. They're just stating the facts as they are because they are indeed the facts. So I want to address a couple of conspiracy theories going on right now because they're very dangerous. The first one is that COVID is a hoax. Now, it's been almost 10 months. Actually, it's been 10 months since COVID arrived in the United States and Canada and across the world. And we are seeing that the death rate is astronomical. People are not dying for no reason. They are dying from COVID-19 infection. And they are also becoming extremely ill from this infection. Many people have been hospitalized for days, weeks, and months. Some people have required ventilation. Some people need lung transplants. People are having brain injuries, amputations, horrifying effects. COVID is not a hoax. It is an infection just like the flu, and it is passed in the same way as the flu through droplets from your nose and mouth, and it is very contagious. In fact, there are new variants that are even more contagious, and there are simple ways to protect yourself, including social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands regularly, making sure that you stay away from people if you have any symptoms yourself of a cough, sneeze, sore throat, runny nose, fever. Those are very simple things to do. And it's important that you recognize that COVID is not a hoax. It's not a government conspiracy to control you. It is a very terrible and very deadly illness that may affect some people mildly, but can be extremely devastating. And you don't know how you will be affected or how your loved one will be affected until somebody gets it. There was something online recently about this hip hop performer in the United States, and he didn't believe in COVID. He didn't wear a mask, and he's only in his 30s, but he caught COVID, and now he is waiting for a double lung transplant because COVID has decimated his lungs, and he was a previously fairly healthy 30-something-year-old guy. So that's how COVID can affect you. And so we cannot keep thinking that COVID is a hoax. There are too many facts, reality-based facts that tell us that COVID is real. Now, another conspiracy going around is that vaccinations cause autism. That was based on a study that was disproven many years ago, and the doctor lost his medical license. That's how much of a hoax he was. So there is nothing to indicate that vaccines cause autism or that they're implanting listening devices or tracking devices into people. Vaccines are actually based on our immune system, and what they do is they boost our immune response so that we can fend off or fight against infections. The reason why we don't have polio these days is because of vaccines. The reason we don't have smallpox these days is because of vaccines. Many people died of smallpox, and many people had horrible injuries, needing to live on a respirator. It's called an iron lung in the old days because of polio, and these illnesses were eradicated by vaccines. Measles can cause a brain disease called encephalitis, which can cause mental retardation and even death. And measles was mostly eradicated because of vaccinations, although it's coming back because of anti-vaxxers. Vaccines prevent us from catching diphtheria, which is a horrible illness, typhoid, cholera, which are illnesses that wiped out populations in the third world, which now are recovering because of the presence of vaccinations. Vaccines are safe, they're effective, and they're backed by years and years, decades and decades of research. And the COVID-19 vaccine, although it came around quite quickly, it is actually a vaccine that has been in the works for many years, at least 15 years, because it was started right after the SARS outbreak, because people started thinking that the coronavirus, which is the SARS virus as well, would be a serious illness. And so they started studying the coronavirus back when SARS came along, which is almost 15 years ago, or actually more than 15 years ago. And also they've been studying the messenger RNA molecule, which is the way that we get the vaccine to be effective. And that's also been a field of study for many, many years. So between the mRNA and the COVID virus being studied, we have a vaccine that is the culmination of over 15 years of research. It's not a 9-month flash in the pan. So we can be confident that the vaccine is safe and effective. And yes, of course, there are always some side effects with the odd person, but I was just reading a stat that it's like less than 1 in several million that we're going to have a severe reaction to the vaccine. And of course, if we're vaccinating the whole planet, there are probably going to be a few reactions, but there are always reactions to everything. Look, we can eat a potato chip and have an anaphylactic reaction. You know, we cannot vilify vaccines because 1 or 2 people might have a side effect, because then we would vilify everything in the world, because we can be allergic to just about anything. What we should be afraid of is the COVID virus, not the vaccine. You know, one of my patients called me up these days and said she was at the top of the list because she is a provider to a person in a nursing home, and she said, "Oh, I'm afraid of taking the vaccine." And I said, "Be afraid of COVID. Don't be afraid of that vaccine." So that's another conspiracy theory. You know, there's no such thing as COVID. The vaccines are not safe. Those are not based in fact. Another conspiracy theory is that the United States government is run by pedophiles. There is nothing to indicate that that's the truth. And these QAnon theories are really laughable if they weren't so dangerous and, you know, people didn't actually believe them. There's nothing based in fact. And if you do any research whatsoever, you can see that they are absurd. But of course, people believing these absurd theories become dangerous, as we see by the mob that invaded the Capitol building just a few days ago. And the final conspiracy theory that we really need to put to rest is the conspiracy theory that the recent US election was stolen, because there is no evidence whatsoever, in fact, that this happened. Over 60 court challenges happened, and they were either thrown out completely or proven that there was no fraud and no irregularities whatsoever. But, you know, again, people who lost don't like to lose, and so they perpetrate these lies. What we should understand is that if there had been voter fraud in the United States, it wouldn't have simply arisen in this recent election. It would have happened when the 2016 elections happened, and the ones before that, and the ones before that. And no one has ever mentioned voter fraud before. It's just a ploy by people who've lost to say, I don't like the fact that I've lost, so I'm going to say that I lost unfairly. And that's the same as somebody said the other day, that if you had a football game and the losers stood on the field after they scored fewer points and said, "No, we won, but you scored fewer points. No, we won. There were irregularities, there was fraud." You know, if you lose, you lose. And part of being a grown-up is being gracious and graceful about losing and not making up lies and stories and conspiracy theories which lead to violent uprisings, which is very, very dangerous and very disturbing. It's so important that we cultivate healthy skepticism, because that will protect us from being sold lies and falsehoods, mistruths. Because what we need is always to be grounded in reality, because that's what makes us sane. Sanity means being grounded in reality. Insanity means not being grounded in reality. And having healthy skepticism helps us be sane and balanced and have a sense of perspective. And so when we have the facts, that's when we can make the best choices and proceed through our lives with really a good perspective. So healthy skepticism means don't just believe what people tell you, even if you admire them, even if you like them. Believe the facts. Do your research, do your homework, find out if what they're saying is true, and really question what people's motivations are for what they're saying. Do they stand to gain in some way? Of course, the QAnon people stand to gain by creating chaos and anarchy. The people who are saying that the election was rigged stand to gain because they want to win. And people who say that COVID-19 is a hoax, they stand to gain because they want life back to normal, despite the fact that it cannot be back to normal right now. And so they are willing to put themselves and everyone around them at risk because there's financial gain for them. So everyone who stands to gain by putting forward some kind of conspiracy theory, we really have to ask ourselves, why are they saying this? Is it really the truth, or is it just something that they need to say because it benefits them in some way? And that's how we cultivate healthy skepticism. And we do our research, we find out the truth, we find out the facts, and we believe the facts, not someone's attitude, not someone's opinion, not someone who is, convincing and seductive and, a great speaker. No, we listen to the facts, and we listen for any discrepancies or any contradictions or any ulterior motives, and we cultivate healthy skepticism, and that will help us move forward into 2021 with a great attitude and real empowerment. So please stay safe, stay smart, keep your heart open, keep your mind open, and make sure that you take care of yourself and your loved ones. And I will speak to you very soon.